Hello world, welcome to the 248th climate change emergency protest. And I'm saying climate because instead of climate change, this goes well beyond that, and that our politicians are committing crimes on us around the whole world and here in the United States in their lack of involvement, and they're going the other way concerning climate change. I'll talk about that briefly today. This is number 248. Next week is number 249. Climate change emergency protest now be on September 1st. So this is August 24th. Right now, I'm getting conflicting reports, but it's important that I convey this to you because to not do so would be criminal on my part. Right now, the Mars Perseverance rover a couple days ago saw a giant sunspot on the far side of the sun, because Mars right now is on the opposite side of the solar system, and they're seeing the far side of the sun. So this rover was able to take a photo or a video some 150 million miles away. So what it is seeing is a fairly large sunspot, which has had NASA freaked out 3 days ago or 4 days ago. And they're concerned when the sun rotates around that this sunspot is not only getting larger, but it also is moving down and will eventually focus towards the Earth. Might end up being nothing. I'm just giving you a fair warning about it, as they said in their broadcast that you're getting a week's warning of this. So it's important that you know about it and the possibilities of what could happen, but most likely will not happen. So this is 150 million miles away, and they're concerned it's going to send off solar flares, radio waves, X-rays, could go as far as gamma rays, but they don't know. Because it's on the other side of the sun, and for some reason we don't have satellites on the opposite side of the sun. I don't know why. So solar flares, coronal mass ejections, which are bubbles of gas with magnetic field lines in it, which are probably more dangerous than just the solar flares. Who knows though? I mean, probably it's a toss-up which is which is more dangerous. So the effects could be nothing all the way to satellites being affected, navigation, communication from the satellites. The astronauts in the space stations could be affected, radiation coming through the space station, which they don't have much protection from that. Astronauts with Space Force, which no one's talking about Space Force and the astronauts up there all the time. Power outages on Earth, the grid collapse, the solar flares, and the coronal mass ejections could send a massive amount of electrical magnetic waves into the grid and then overpower it, and then it just collapses all in all. And what happens in a real severe situation, it could be out, power could be out for a day, an hour, a week, a month, who knows, depending on how severe it is. So this might not happen, this might happen, I don't know. If you'll know by this weekend and next week, and then the sun keeps rotating, so it'll either pass and nothing happens, or something will happen, I don't know. So back to climate change, or climate change. Right now, President Biden has not declared a climate change emergency. This is sinister. He knows what's going on. This is all political. What he's doing is playing these games where he doesn't want to affect Wall Street and the economy by declaring a climate change emergency on Wall Street. Wall Street will be affected and it'll tumble because everyone will freak out, as they should. The economy will tumble, as it should. Kicking the can down the hallway, eventually you run out of hallway and you hit the final door. And this is where we are right now with your politician, Joe Biden, with your politicians, Donald Trump and all the Republicans, with your politicians, all the members in Congress, with your politicians, local people who aren't doing anything about hardening up our area concerning climate change. This is hugely concerning to me. I've been talking about climate change on these talks since 2018. And posting since 2013. Out of all the climate change protests I've been doing, I am freaked out about next year, 2024, with the potential for a massive heat rise. It might be temporary, as in a year or two, but getting through that is going to be highly difficult. And also what it leads to is with higher temperatures leads to other feedback loops. And once you start these feedback loops, you can't get them back. And that could be like the permafrost, ice melt, all sorts of things, sea level rise, you name it, loss of food, people dying. This is a very dangerous situation. If ever I've been concerned, it is what is coming up starting now until the end of 2024. So that's like 18 months of concern that I have, and I can't convey that enough. I don't really know what's going to happen for sure, but I've seen several reports of this massive rise, and next year is going to make us wish that we had 2023 back again. Okay, 2023 has been horrendous. So far in 2023 and a year ago as well into 2022, you had, and I'm going to miss a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not even covering international. This is just the United States for the most part. And I'm going to miss some things. As I said, you got Maui with the firestorm and everything else coming down from that, which was a climate change issue. This would not have happened. The ignition would not have been there had there not been a severe drought, and then the massive Category 4 hurricane going south of Maui, several hundred miles away, pulling air in. It's a Category 4, so it affects everything for hundreds of miles around. Also 2023, this has been the hottest July in human history. These things we forget because we go into our other little goldfish bowls. We've got goldfish memory and we can't remember more than 8 seconds ago. But it was the hottest July in human history. We're talking human history, 120,000 years. Canada's had 35 million acres burned, okay? And it's only going to get worse up there for now until things slow down. And I don't see it slowing down in Canada. You get the wildfire smoke, you get the amount of carbon sink that is lost, like the trees, the boreal forests in Siberia and Canada draw down, in Sweden and places like that, draw down a huge amount of carbon dioxide and put it in the soil. Well, it's burning up and putting all that carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. And it's 35 million acres just in Canada, okay? You're not talking about the northwest of the United States or Russia or places like that. That's also probably on fire. We don't know, though, because we hate Russia. We hate China. We're not going to work with them. And that's how you die, okay? Not working with other countries, having war, endless war is how we're going to die. And it's going to be super ugly, worse than now. I'm not in charge, but this is crazy. And to keep voting for these people that are supposedly in charge and supposedly your leaders is suicide. You're committing suicide by voting for any of these leaders around the world that are engaged in policies. And don't take your media, as far as their broadcasts of what they're doing. You really have to look into it as to what actions they have taken. I've talked about Joe Biden and all his heinous crap that he's done, Donald Trump and all the stuff he's done. Biden is just on par with Trump as far as doing heinous things. Don't kid yourself, okay? If you got children, if you're alive right now, you got grandchildren, whatever, you got friends, no friends, people you actually see in the store, these are dead people walking right now the way we're going. We're not changing our ways. So in 2023, we had winter tornadoes, which was unheard of when I was a kid. In the Northwest recently, Portland, Oregon had 108 degrees. Now, had they not had the 116 degrees 2 years earlier, the 108 would have been their all-time high. Portland, Oregon is supposed to be 80 degrees all the time, 80s, 70s, 60s, things like that, not 108. Okay, the central USA, right now they got the heat dome, but they had it for months over Texas and Arizona and things like that. And this heat dome just stays there. And it's going to get pushed away eventually over the next week or two, slowly by the jet stream, theoretically. That's going to slowly push it away for once. And who knows what will happen after that. You had floods in Vermont, if you remember. You had floods in Kentucky. You had tropical storm that just happened in the western USA, Southern California, Arizona, places like that. You had Gulf of Mexico's all-time high in temperature. If you look at Florida, the Florida Keys, the temperature has been 100-some degrees in the Gulf of Mexico. You had El Nino with this that's coming on now, which is a huge contributor to what's going to happen in 2024 as far as temperature goes. We're probably going to go past the 1.5 Paris Agreement barrier into 2.1, things like that. I don't know what the effects are. I can tell you it's going to be horrendous. I can probably put guesstimates on as far as all the things that's going to happen. No one talks about the food issue. When you have massive heat, food doesn't grow, things like that. You lose your habitat. You have to leave your area. You can't stay in an area when it's way too hot. You have to get out if you can. Sun activity, as I said, is going to be strong until 2025. That just means the sun's getting brighter till then, and it kicks off more um, long wave rays that come through the Earth's atmosphere, strikes the ground, goes back out as infrared heat. But if the atmosphere has more greenhouse gases, as we're contributing constantly, it's going up, not down. You're going to have the inability of the Earth to shed off its excess heat into space. Sorry, the dog's barking. Wait, Luna, come on. And then 2024, as I said, it's going to be extremely hot. Permafrost thaw, and then this happens every broadcast. Luna, stop. Luna, stop. Anyways, permafrost thaw, Antarctica, 7 deviations from normal as far as the lack of sea ice. You have flood risks for 2024, such as fire, heat, drought, and floods. The AMOC, Atlantic Meridional potential shutdown between 2025 and 2095. You have massive feedback loops that can occur off of that. Everything will rotate around this AMOC for now until Antarctica melts even more and Greenland melts. Then you get all these players involved with feedback loops, and you just don't know what's going to happen. It's a horrendous thing. As bad as 2023 was, 2024 is shaping up to be a lot worse than 2023, as I said. So for the sunspot situation, make sure you have all your electronics charged up for the next week. Make sure you have enough batteries if the grid goes down. Make sure you have gasoline in your car if you have to get out of the area because you don't have air conditioning. And don't forget, your car has air conditioning in it usually. Don't sit in one spot though, because you potentially could cause carbon monoxide unless you have a good airflow around the exhaust pipe. Definitely don't sit in your car in your garage. Make sure your ice cube trays, if you have ice in your refrigerator, are all full and emptied out, and you have a bin of ice. This is just in case the grid goes down. I don't think it will, but we don't know. I never seen NASA do this kind of broadcast saying there's a giant sunspot going around and coming this way. Now, I've seen other reports yesterday, the day before, that is not NASA, that's saying there's nothing happening. Everything's calm and quiet, but they don't have access to the far side of the sun as to what's happening. So make sure your gas tanks are full. Make sure you have cash on hand, okay? Denmark, for example, is all about charge cards and electronics. If their electronic system goes down, they have no ability to do any funds, get money, things like that. Make sure you have some cash on hand so that if things do go down for a day or a week, you have enough cash. And this should be at any time. If you have the ability to have some cash on hand, make sure you have some, at least to barter and make payments for food and gasoline. Well, gasoline won't work because if the electronics go offline, gas stations can't pump gas. It's not like the old days where you had a crank, like my grandfather had at his farm, and you did a pump thing, and then you just got the gas out of the tank that was in the ground at his farm. So things are changing, things are constantly changing, things are getting worse, but it comes down to the fact that your politicians are not engaged. They're not talking to the media, making the case about climate change. And this is about the Democrats. Republicans are done. They're idiots right now, and they continue to be saying climate change is a hoax. This shouldn't be even venturing out of their mouths, because largely their population, where the Republicans are largely located around the South, are being hit the hardest concerning climate change. Keep denying it. You can deny all you want. It doesn't make it go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And eventually they'll have to say, oh yeah, climate change is real. But by then it's too late. By now it's too late. Okay, we could have done something 20 years ago or 30 years ago, maybe to affect it for the positive, but right now we're not. So the Republican politicians right now, if you're hearing their stuff about a hoax, turn off your air conditioner, drive down south, and sit in your car for about an hour or two, or just sit down south without your air conditioner on, or in the Midwest, and see how long you last. All right? I guarantee you most of the people, if not all the people, when the heat index is 116 degrees, have their air conditioners on. The farmers in their combines and stuff have air conditioning in their cab. Okay, they aren't sitting out like the old farmers used to do at Green Acres and and drive through the farm and pretend everything's okay. They're getting scorched to death. Okay, everyone's functioning on air conditioning right now, which causes more problems. And if the grid goes down, they're in big trouble with a solar flare or whatever might happen. Okay, so that's the Republicans. The Democrats are even worse in some respects because they act like they're doing nothing. But as I said before, over and over again, Biden's authorized, let's see if I can pull this out of my head. Biden's authorized Willow Project in North Slope, Alaska, which represents 600 million barrels of oil. He's authorized 6,000 some drilling permits on federal lands when he said he wasn't going to authorize a single one during his campaign. That's why you can't listen to anything he says during his campaign concerning climate change as being truthful. It's an absolute lie. He's done worse, heinous things than I even imagined he would do. So you have the Willow Project, the authorization on federal land. You have the 3 auctions in the Gulf of Mexico, for which total 80 million acres for drilling. You had the Joe Manchin pipeline authorized from West Virginia to North Carolina, which is methane. They call it natural gas, but it's methane, which is the worst greenhouse gas there is. And then you had Line 3 that is going from the Alberta tar sands, one of the worst tar sands in Canada, through Canada, down through Minnesota to Wisconsin, and we'll hook up there, and we'll be using that sludge as oil for our country. This is all about economics and making money and things like that. We're giving away $11 million a second, the world is, to the fossil fuel industry for subsidies. Okay, $11 million a second. It's like $6 trillion a year or something crazy. This is insanity. What we're doing. This is murder. What the politicians and their friends are doing concerning their policy towards us. This is absolute straight up murder. To deny it is ridiculous. The debate last night for the Republicans was absolute total heinous lies concerning climate change. You can have your political outlook. It doesn't change the facts. So those are straight up lies. The politicians are engaged in murder, and it's our suicide. Every time you vote for these people, these parties, oh, I don't want the other party to win. You're voting for your death of yourself and your children and everything else. So you're basically committing murder on your children and your children's children, but also committing your own suicide. So I'll catch you next week. I am concerned about next year, and keep your eye next week, as I said, this weekend and through next week. Nothing might happen concerning the sunspot, but do potentially think about the risk that if you're relying on electronics, that you're hardened up a little bit and you're prepared for what's going on. All right, I'll catch you next week. See you later.